Can we get the show on the road? The
No.
intro for last week was way too long. Everyone stopped listening.
How long was the intro to last week?
It was like an hour.
Well, we're gonna beat it this time.
Dun, 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 dun.
Welcome back, my friends, to another episode
That
of
never
the
ends.
Drive-In Podcast. My name is Alex. I'm joined, as always, by my
By Gordon Cole.
shell-shocked co-hosts, Garrett DiNardo, who has a hearing problem because he's old as dicks.
Yeah, but dicks vary in age. That doesn't make any sense.
What? You're as old as the oldest dick that ever lived.
Kirk Douglas is still around. Old wrinkly boy.
Kirk Douglas was in a movie called Paths of Glory, which is
when
a war
people
movie,
look
but
at
we're
Kirk
talking
Douglas,
about.
they go, "Oh, okay."
And that's what they do about you too, Garrett.
Yep. The band? That's weird.
Um,
Bono.
Today we're talking about a movie, and let me preface this by saying that neither of us have listened to the Quentin Tarantino podcast that just came out on this movie. We had this planned before that podcast came out, but then it came out and we were already dug in at this point. What a coincidence, eh? One of our favorite filmmakers. Let's talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood again.
You're as bad with Tarantino as I am with Lynch.
With who? That was Kubrick. Oh yeah, it was Lynch though in Twin Peaks.
Yeah, it was a
bringing
running
up
joke
everything.
that we say always.
Way back in season 1. What?
We're
We're talking, of course, today about Chris Nolan's most recent movie, Dunkirk.
Interstellar.
Dunkirk. What is it, Garrett?
It's your fucking show.
It's not my show. I do this
Dunkirk
every week. You have to explain it every week.
It's a movie about war that's been done before.
All right.
It's a movie about the guy from the Starship Enterprise.
What?
And they're
you
like,
going on?
"You're done, Kirk.
God, you think you're so funny.
Get her done, Kirk."
You think you're so funny, and you're not.
And I'm not.
You're not.
You hear the helicopter?
Oh, yeah. Really quickly. This is really off the rails. Can you whip us back into shape here?
Crack that whip.
Nope, you can't. So Dunkirk
No,
is...
I have to. I was waiting for it to pack because it's landing at the hospital that's just down the street, so I have to wait.
Wow, you live that close to the hospital in case you have a stroke because you're so old?
I've been stroking.
Definitely.
I'm coming, Elizabeth. This is the big one. So Dunkirk is basically about a British battle during World War II, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes.
There's this creeping doubt in the back of my head was like, "Are you sure that's when it was?"
Yes.
And a lot of soldiers were stranded on a beach. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers were stranded on the beach, and the ships kept getting bombed, and so they had to, at desperate times, called for desperate measures. They asked for people who had just little personal yachts and sea-going vessels to go and pick up people. And so it was a morale-boosting thing that happened in the actual war of people coming together and getting things done.
Nice.
Well, that's our show for this week.
Yeah, so this is, of course, by Christopher Nolan, who is Garrett's least favorite director of all time. And yes, this is the first time I think we've done one of his movies. We talked really quickly about Dark Knight when we did our favorite villains podcast, but I think this is the first time we've actually had a dedicated episode to this cinema legend, right, Garrett? And I'm just going to be blasting you the whole podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody listening?
That's not that kind of a podcast.
Garrett does gross. So anyway, I started blasting.
So there I was, spraying cum everywhere.
I really like Nolan movies, but I do a lot. So this is going to be just me getting mad at him a lot for his awful taste in film.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to say it. I think that The Dark Knight Rises is the greatest film ever made.
That's what I have issue with.
I don't think that.
No, I know that, but I mean, it's like
I would go as far as to say that this is probably Dark Knight notwithstanding his best movie. I think Inception I haven't seen in a very long time, but I think that this is a very different film than he's usually made.
I feel like okay. I mean, if you're gonna actually ask my opinion now,
yeah.
And not
well,
just
I'm building up to it.
He is a modern blockbuster filmmaker, and I feel like I mean, not necessarily. It's not like a 1-to-1 comparison, but like he's almost a modern Spielberg.
I was gonna say he's the kind of director we don't really have anymore, where he's like doing whatever he wants with gigantic budgets untied to franchises. Some of his movies, this especially, is what, like a 150 budget,
something like that.
I think Tenet is about that too, and so was Interstellar. But those are like properties that like I don't think a lot of studios would trust anybody else to give that much money for just fuck off and make a 2-hour like basically silent war movie.
Yeah, I mean him and James Cameron are like the only two that can just do whatever they want with whatever budget they want. I mean, it's like it depends. You'll be more impressed by Nolan the least amount of like David Lean or like actual like previous generation films you've seen, especially with this specific movie, a war movie. Right. But yeah, I mean, it's like you said, for modern film, there aren't very many that are able to play with this amount of budget and then do original stories, or air quotes original, in the fact that there've been lots of movies about Dunkirk when it's based on an actual thing, and so it's like in that aspect he is special or
like
different.
To get someone like budgets he has for Tenet or for even like Interstellar and stuff like that is
sure.
That's where I think, or not Interstellar, I meant Inception. They both start with I's and ends.
Well, Interstellar had quite a big budget too.
Oh, and I meant it for originality. And I know if I said Interstellar and originality, you would bind or clap me. So I meant Inception for that point, just so you know.
I mean, but the thing is...
You're going to be like, the thing is, though, Inception's not original either.
Well, because not only...
There's a Spanish film all about dream heists from 1927.
No, actually, it's
called Syneption.
It's a Scrooge Duck and his 3 nephews. There was a comic book that actually had the exact same story that had come out before.
God.
I mean, no, I'm being serious.
Like, I know. That's why I'm saying, God damn it! I knew you were going to find something.
It was actually a point of contention online when it had come out, when people were saying it was original. And, like,
and it is a weird thing, hot take here. But the Dark Knight trilogy is actually like based on a comic book. It's not an original property either. I don't know. A lot of people don't actually know that. But like, Nolan didn't invent Batman. Can you believe that? That was a bad joke, but come on.
No, I got it.
Come on. Work with me here. You're supposed to be like, ha, 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 and like hype up and do bad joke laughing like I always do. Whatever.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, the thing is, the more original you get, the least amount of money you're gonna make.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a blockbuster filmmaker can literally only be so original before the returns diminish.
Yeah, the masses turn and go like, what the hell was that?
Right. So,
which is maybe why he still ties everything into something else.
It could be.
Like Tenet, for example, I'm jumping a lot to it. It looks very James Bondy. So maybe he's putting it under the guise of that to try to hook people in before he plays with his own ideas.
Well, he likes to play with genres.
Sure.
I mean, it's Following and Memento are more noirish. And then, like you said, Batman, the comic series.
Those are more like... Michael Mann-esque.
Exactly. It has some of that. It has a little bit of politicizing in them. Interstellar. There's obvious connections as to what that's for.
For what?
That's to me, and that is why I will still say The Prestige is probably my favorite of his, because I think it is the most original and that's the most different to the ones that he's done.
That movie out Shyamalan.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it is definitely a thriller. To me, None of the other things could be in it, but you cast David Bowie as Tesla, I'm in.
That is true. That's the kind of movie's got a killer cast too.
Yeah. Well, and he always casts his movies well.
This one, yeah, is as well too.
So anyway,
Did you hear that sentence?
no, I heard it and I just went right past it.
I don't let myself make all my own mistakes. See, here we go again. Do I know English?
No.
We will get to the bottom of that question today on the Digital Driving Podcast. You say he likes to play with genres. This is a war movie.
Yes.
What's your favorite war movie?
Jeez, you already know. To me, it's difficult because, I mean, war is very broad. I mean, war is a very humanistic thing, so we should be able to tie in anything. But I'm more of an anti-war person than a rah, let's go, our country's the greatest.
That's just called being a decent person.
I would hope. So I like war movies from different eras. Like Paths of Glory is probably
I knew
my
that would be
favorite
the
war
first
movie.
one you would say.
Yeah, but like I love Full Metal Jacket because Full Metal Jacket talks about it's not just the fact of going to war, but what happens to men or boys really when they're just getting trained for war. Like, does that
What's
actually
the commonality between those movies?
They're good stories. But I mean, it's like not just that. Like Apocalypse Now is a fantastic war movie that is also anti-war and gets behind the psychology of.
I would say as a book movie, a little less so. All Quiet on the Western Front deals with some of those themes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anti-war, especially corruption of youth, kind of thing.
Even though it's more of like a prisoner of war movie, but Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, which has again not only David Bowie but also Takeshi Kitano, another fantastic about the humanizing aspects so people can be on completely different sides and how there's actually a commonality between people just because they're human.
Hogan's Heroes
is funny based on Stalag 17, a Wilder movie, not Gene Wilder, Billy. And I like Bob Crane, the pervert that he is, or was. Apparently, you've not seen Autofocus. Anyway.
No, I was making a joke about his head getting bashed in, but...
Right the fuck in.
It's been long enough, right? I can make that joke.
Sure. I mentioned earlier David Lean. I mean, Bridge on the River Kwai, as well as Lawrence of Arabia, two of the greatest war movies ever. More of like
there's also like war. People tend to think of just 20th century plus kind of things,
right?
But you got like I know recently. I don't know why it was the first one came to my head for this example. But we both watched Kajamusha recently. Yeah. That's kind of a war movie, but it's like ancient wars, I suppose.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have like Villagers with Seven Samurai, and then you can go all the way up to like Ran, whatever the Japanese name for that is, where it actually is like nation against nation. And I mean, no one is greater than Kurosawa when it comes to those types of films.
Yeah, thanks, Shakespeare.
I said films. I didn't say stories.
Yeah.
Dickhead.
Wow. I think Dunkirk is less along those lines and more along the lines of something like Saving Private Ryan.
It's definitely a spectacle movie.
It's not necessarily very like humanistic, where it asks like those questions of how does war change a person or corrupt a person or like ruin a person, I guess. It's more of just showing in the moment how terrifying everything is.
And I think at the end it's supposed to make you feel good because the people survive.
Right. Most of them.
Yeah, which is almost like doing a movie about a lottery winner. It's like, yeah, that happened, but it's one out of millions.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, I mean, I feel bad when the French guy drowns. I don't know about you.
Spoilers. The French guy.
Wow.
I will get to it. Never mind. I see that you put actors, so we'll get to it.
But I think, for the most part, I tend to agree with you. I like movies that are very anti-war and stuff like that. Pretty much all the ones you listed, you asked.
Right.
But I also like things like Band of Brothers, which I think also deals with that kind of... It deals with that and like how much it sucks to lose somebody that you like in the war, I suppose, but also the camaraderie that comes through shared trauma, essentially.
Exactly. And
Probably why I
Spielberg
like
is
the
kind of the
Pacific
master
less. Spielberg is the master of
of modern war movies.
right. And I think we had when did we have the discussion? Schindler's List as a war movie?
Yeah, I would
had
think
this
so.
discussion at one point.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best war movie or movie set around a war, for various reasons, I guess.
Right.
It's less to deal with the soldiers and more of the people impacted by it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
there are a lot of great war movies.
I agree. Well,
Obviously.
I mean, it's a human thing, and a lot of wars have happened. I mean, you even have like the Battle of Algiers, which has to do with like terrorism. So,
right.
You know, whether you're talking about oppressive society or freedom fighters or terrorist groups or whatever, it's like any of those things can definitely come into play.
Starship Troopers.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that
literally
the novel more so than the film. The film is
Yes.
more of like a satire, almost a parody, but
still.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very interesting war movie, I suppose. It was shot in 70mm for nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of films shot in the full-on 70mm IMAX, or big budget stuff at least. Or there is, but it's not like treated with respect, I guess. I think Transformers and shit was shot some of it in 70mm IMAX, but like, what are you shooting CGI in 70mm? How are you doing that? This film looks fucking gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you. This is a very, very good looking movie.
I would say the cinematography and the sound design are undeniably great.
Yes. And it is a very, very loud movie. Oh my god. Speaking of which, before I forget about it, the first gunshot in the movie, did it make you jump?
No.
Remember the first time I saw it in theaters, it did make me jump. Maybe it's because theaters is so loud, but
I had it cranked. I had my monitoring headphones on so I could hear it as good as possible. Turned out all the lights, really focused in.
With the cinematography, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's.
What did you think of how it looked? A lot of the shit, like, it's all practical, I'm pretty sure. Even like the planes. So shooting some of like the dogfighting sequences in the 70mm is like fucking gorgeous.
Oh yeah, I mean, because they had to actually strap the IMAX camera like in somehow, the Spitfire.
Yeah, I know.
No, that's the thing, is it did look nice. There, especially, I had issues. Some of the long shots, like the size of the crowd seemed to fluctuate.
Mm-hmm.
And things like that. But the more intimate moments, I think having that really big camera to fill the space. I mean, it would have been nice if I could have seen it at the theater, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I think that would make a bit of a difference. But seeing it in the best home presentation that I could, it definitely was impressive, and you could tell there was a lot of work and that they did a lot of things practically. Even though you could tell here and there they did some things. Well, you'd have to do something. I mean, you know, it's not like you can't go into the jungle and just blow up stuff like Francis Ford Coppola did.
Well, you could, but
yeah, I mean, you know, he didn't actually. Yeah.
Speaking of flying, back to the dogfighting. I do think some of that shit is like so crazy well shot. The shots where like the camera's attached to the wing of the plane while it's like turning looks so cool.
It does.
And then even seeing like some of the dogfights from the ground level, especially like when the people on the boat are watching it, it's just, I don't know, it just feels so fucking real and awesome. Like, I mean, the sense of that word, like it's awe-inspiring kind of thing at times.
Yeah.
And you talked about sound design as well too. And while I'm on the topic of dogfighting, I think a lot of the sounds from the planes are wild, especially the plane that drops the bombs on the people on the beach, the screamer planes. Are just fucking terrifying. And a lot of this stuff, like you say you want to see it in theaters. I recognize that it is still a fantastic movie when I watched it at home, but I did see it in the 70mm IMAX, and I would say it's probably the greatest theater experience I've ever had. It just felt like getting punched in the face for 2 hours. It was just so loud and so like aggressive, basically. It was pretty wild. Right. It certainly is a different experience watching this one in the theaters versus at home.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And it's like I've had that experience as well, where I've seen something like that in IMAX, and it's like totally different when you just watch it at home.
Yeah.
If you really like dogfighting movies, you should check out Wings, the 20s movie.
I want to.
Like
the
1920s.
Yeah, I know, because it's 2020. First Best Picture winner.
Yes, and
it's got that gorgeous shot over the tables.
That is a fantastic shot, but they strapped cameras to planes and then made the actors fly the biplanes.
Jesus.
So when they're dogfighting, they're actually dogfight. The actors are in the air dogfighting.
That's fucking wild.
Yeah,
That is wild. Speaking of dogfighting, if you like dogfighting, Top Gun 2 comes out soon.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, but
I think
it's all practical. It might be wild.
You mean Top Gun Maverick?
Mission Impossible Maverick. Tom Cruise, plane one.
No, it's I know the stuff that Tom Cruise oversaw for the stunts. I know is going to be good. I don't give three shits about his character. Or
That's not what I'm there for, though.
I guarantee you,
with Top Gun, I'm literally there for the plane fights. Like,
no, you are there for playing with the boys part 2. That's what you're there.
Well, the song. I'm there for the song.
Playing with the boys.
Man, the Kenny Loggins soundtrack. It's been a long time since we've had one of those. I'm very in. This is an awful podcast already.
You can cut all this out. Streamline it.
We're fine.
Buddy girl.
Sound design in general. What you said that you liked it a lot?
Yes. Not only did I think the explosions and the gunfire and, like you said, the fact that the sound mix attacked you, the soundtrack, the score was utterly fantastic, especially in creating tense situations. I think more so than the visuals, it was the audio that made those things work.
Oh, 100%. This is a very auditory experience. In fact, there's a story where when Nolan asked Zimmer to do the score again, because they worked with each other constantly, like almost the movie, I think, he approached him with the idea of making it one song, essentially. It would have been a 1 hour and 46-minute song rather than being like split up into things, because he wanted it to be cohesive. And he's like, I'm not going to do that, but I will make it cohesive. So the music's pretty much blasting in some way the entire time. I don't think it lets up until they're on the train at the end, and it's just like a brief moment of silence. There's always some kind of sound going on, whether it's like a ticking clock or, full-on horns and all that.
Right. I think emotionally and for a character moment, having some silence and some subtlety in the film would have really helped, especially with connecting with the very sameness of a lot of the characters. And I think that might have been a misstep for me, but I can understand why the decision was made to have it that way all the way through until the end. But I think it would have been improved from a storytelling perspective.
The only place you could have that kind of subtlety would be either on the beach for a moment, because it's a week, or very briefly on the boat. But yeah, you obviously couldn't have any silence, I don't think, on the plane because of the whole editing with the time, right?
Yeah, and that's another thing. I know that's one of the other points that you would like to bring up about the nonlinear part of the story.
That's where I was going next. So
okay, so I think that hurt it a little bit in my eyes as well, because we see the same things play out from two different locations, and I noticed that. So it's like I already knew what was going to happen, and therefore
it's not trying to hide it. It says it in the first 5 minutes. It introduces all three of the plot lines and tells you 1 week, 1 day, 1 hour immediately. It's not trying to hide it.
No, it wasn't like there was a surprising thing, but it's like they show a boat that's capsized, and then later in the movie you show the boat before the water even gets there. So you're like, oh, okay, I already know that the water comes up and the boat capsizes and they're swimming and they're going to get picked up.
Right.
So it's like that cuts any of the tension out when they start target practicing the boat, or whether or not they have to wait. They thought it was 3 hours, but it's actually 6 hours. It's like any of those things that he undercuts himself by presenting the story ahead of time.
Right.
Whereas if it would have been like they're in the air and they're dogfighting and, oh my goodness, I don't know if that guy's okay. That was like, to me, that was the one benefit of the time jump, is thinking the guy is waving him off saying, hey, I'm okay, I'll see you.
I love that part. And
he's actually stuck. That was the only time when that actually worked for the benefit of the story rather than you already know it.
Right.
Is having that misconception. So I think there was a lot of that would have been in editing, not even have to introduce the concept of time and just show things when they happened.
So don't do it non-linear, you're saying?
Correct.
Do 45 minutes with the kid before you switch to somebody else because he's in a week.
Or the parts that are, some of the parts with the kid didn't really do anything, because like I didn't feel any connection to the kid. In fact, Like there were times where it was confusing to know which of the people in the group was the kid because he's just like dark-haired, vaguely European.
You mean you couldn't tell the difference between him and the One Direction guy?
Is that even who he was? I didn't know.
One of the guys is from One Direction.
Is it Harry Styles or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
the guy
and that's
who uses both of the F-bombs.
I don't know. It's like the characters, like Tom Hardy was great because he was so expressive through his eyes that he doesn't have to necessarily say anything. Like just
He's such a fucking badass.
Yeah, his demeanor in the plane, and he is the ace pilot.
Yeah.
It's like that was fine. He didn't need to say anything.
I love like when he's marking down with the chalk how much fuel he has left.
Yes.
And what time it is. It's just so good.
So it's like his character, I liked that because it stood out. The old man,
his face until the end, too.
Right. The old man in the boat that decided to go on anyway.
Mark Rylance.
I don't know what anybody's. So it's like,
wow.
I don't know I don't even remember any character's name. Like I basically just
neither.
remember actors' names.
Yeah.
And that to me that's an issue. Unless that's what you're specifically going for, but I think maybe
the kid's name is never stated.
Yeah.
Neither is the pilot.
So it's like
the only kid who's ever named is fucking Sigurdir.
Right. And I kind of think I could have done without him in the movie at all. Even though I understand what spot it would, like, if you're going to just make the stuff up, him being the guy's kid rather than just being someone at the dock would have been more powerful.
Right. I think it was meant to be a small town, so they all knew who he was anyway.
Sure. It's like, I like Cillian Murphy. I don't know necessarily if his character was pretty, like, one note, but...
Well, it was shell-shocked, so it's hard to kind of have depth when the only thing he's thinking of is, oh shit, oh fuck, oh shit, the whole time.
Yeah, I agree, and that makes more of an impact if you compare it to like other characters in the film, but when every character is shallow and doesn't have much of an impact, then they all kind of seem samey.
Sure.
Which again, I know can be used as a storytelling device of in war, everyone eventually looks the same and they are just numbers. But it's like I like the idea of it being the opposite of like, do you remember that these are individuals and not just statistics?
Right.
So, but again, that's way more personal preference, and that's way more of a conceptual issue of like, if I was making the film, I would decide to do it differently than what was presented, but that doesn't mean that what was presented was like a bad thing.
Right. Well, at least the movie is consistent.
Right.
There's not like Kenneth Brogdon is pretty good in this.
Even though I think some of his dialogue was really...
I think he's the closest to being like, well, I'm a Shakespeare actor, so yeah. I'm going to treat it as such. Meanwhile, everybody else is kind of, like you said, the samey kind of one note. He's the closest one, I think, that comes to like the, well, I'm going to be serious the whole time. But
it's like when he was going to say something, he suddenly turned into Napoleon.
He is good, though. I do like him.
No, and that's the thing. Is I don't think anyone gave a bad performance.
I could crush another Murder on the Orient Express with him.
I haven't seen it.
They're making one. That's why. They're making another one.
I know. Another
Armie Hammer.
So the thing is, I did not care whatsoever to see it, and then after I saw Knives Out, I have no need.
Oh yeah, I mean you know the ending of the story. It's not like he changes it or anything. Yeah, but I think with the editing and then back to the music as well too, all three of the sequences or sections, I suppose, or whatever you want to call them, have their own. I don't know if it's time signature, but they're all like. Everything is different. It all sound like, I think it is time signatures. Things are faster.
Yeah, it's just like in Inception.
Yeah. So when the climax happens and all three sections come together and you have all three of them, like of the musical cues, I suppose, playing on top of each other, it really adds in the whole like climactic moment, I suppose. Everything feels like it's building to that. And then as like, things converge on top of each other. The music cues converge on top of each other until that climax where it's everything firing on all fronts. It reminds me a bit of First Man when it builds up to the moon landing, and it's kind of like the combination of all of the elements of the score and all of the different motifs from throughout the movie. But that one does it as like a wondrous movie, and this one does it as like fucking, like I said, being personally attacked.
Right.
I'm being shot at.
A cacophony, one could even say.
What do you think of some of the trivia we'll go to? The fact that he used real boats and all that, on like the real gigantic ships and all that.
No, I think you can definitely tell that in the movie, and it gives it a sense of authenticity that you wouldn't get from just filming the stuff on a green screen.
Did he shoot it on the beach, like on the Dunkirk beach?
I don't know if it was on the Dunkirk beach. I don't know.
One that's made to look like it.
Yeah, I that's what I'm thinking, but I'm not sure. I mean, I didn't watch any special features or anything after the film.
Well, it seems as though, it says here, the end credits state 12 of the original little ships that participated in the evacuation are in the movie, reenacting their presence in 1940. So not even the big giant ones, like the tiny little yachts or whatever. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And then I never looked up to see who it was, but that one blind guy at the end that said, that surviving was enough. Had his last name was Nolan, so I was wondering if he was a relative.
And I know the nurse that's handing out like blankets and telling them to go down into the ship is his cousin.
Okay.
Just little tiny things, I suppose.
Yeah.
What do you think of that fact that you never see the Germans? That was kind of a meme, I think, when this movie came out, but you do never see them.
I mean, if you think about an actual war scenario, I mean, the faceless enemy, is kind of an interesting idea. I think conceptually it works just fine. I mean, again, in a war movie, I don't know necessarily if like cheering that other people also got killed, is necessarily a good, even though Nazis or whatever is completely, I could understand wanting to shoot those guys up.
Right.
But I think and it's an easy way to keep a PG-13 rating as well.
Yeah, see, it's PG-13, but like, it doesn't feel like it was trying to remain it, Like nobody.
Well, the beach is completely bloodless.
That is true. Yeah, with explosions, could be limbs everywhere and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that would be more powerful to show the horrors of war, but I understand again he didn't want to go that direction.
Yeah, he didn't want it to be like a Saving Private Ryan gore horrors of war, like body horror kind of thing. It was just kind of more of the psychological barrage that, like, just the sounds of the planes coming down and the bombs going off and the guns firing, and pair that with the music and all that kind of stuff. I think that's what he was aiming for instead. Right.
Which is why I think he chose the nonlinear story to make it more disorienting, even though it didn't have that effect. Because it was a very clear movie. It's not like you didn't know what was going on. In fact, like I said, he showed you a lot of things twice from two different perspectives.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly, Nolan was asked why he cast Harry Styles in the movie, because, he's just the guy from One Direction, and he didn't even care. He's like, I auditioned literally thousands of young men with different combinations of other young men, and he had it. So he didn't even care that he was the One Direction guy. He's just like, yeah, he worked with the other guys.
Yeah.
Whatever. I didn't notice it. Well, I noticed who it was, but I thought he did a fine job.
Well, I mean, I
was shot on the actual beach at Dunkirk where the evacuation took place.
Okay, well, there you
go. The city of Dunkirk wanted parts of the movie to be filmed in the original setting.
Well, cool.
The city government created a cinema department to promote and organize filming in the city. It got 207 days. That's a really weird way to write that, though. I guess 207 days of filming in the first 18 months for different projects. Oh, that's what they mean. Weird. It's also Nolan's shortest movie.
I couldn't name one One Direction song, so
neither could I.
I don't even know if I've heard one.
Nolan originally intended the movie to be improv, and the screenplay ended up only being 76 minutes.
That'd have been a different movie.
Yeah. Probably would have been, I don't know, would have been better? No, it probably would have been worse. Would have been less talking, I think. Well, we were talking about attaching 70mm cameras to the planes. There was a part when he lands the Spitfire on the water. It's the guy that goes down or whatever.
Right.
During filming, the plane with the camera still inside sank quicker than predicted. It took so long to retrieve the plane that the IMAX camera housing filled with water, ruining the expensive camera in the film inside. Oh, potentially ruining it. But Chris Nolan used an old movie technique of keeping the film wet, shipping it back to LA, and getting it processed before it dried out. And that is the take that is in the movie.
Nice.
Kind of interesting. They almost lost an IMAX camera. Those things are probably pretty expensive, too.
Sure. I say we buy one and make our own
Sure.
movie.
Just run back and forth on a beach. Dunkirk. What else is there for this one?
I don't know. Like the storytelling device of the guys on the pier. I don't know if that was like an actual thing that happened. It seemed like a really easy target for them to constantly be on that one pier.
Right.
And I didn't necessarily understand why they got off the boat and climbed down and like were kind of at the bottom of the pier just hanging on, except for the fact they'd be able to save that one guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not entirely sure like the reasoning behind why they did that thing. I don't know. But it's like I some of it I understand in the movie sense of like they have to get. Sometimes I felt like the plot was driving the movie rather than the character driving the movie. But I know they had to do some things, and again I don't know how it could have been that was actually written in a book somewhere of someone that survived Dunkirk, and they said that they did that, and he combined those elements of the story to make his.
Sure.
You know,
I
don't.
It's the kind of event I think where that is what plot does kind of drive the people, because it's kind of like just trying to survive. No one person can kind of make a difference in that, with the exception, I guess, of Tom Hardy. But no one person can kind of make a difference in something like this. It's just fighting time more than it is fighting the Germans and trying to get it in.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing. Is like it got me thinking, like, why did he take so long to try to land? Like he flew over where all the guys were at the beach, and then suddenly when he lands, like the Germans are there.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay.
Was he trying to maybe use everything he had to make sure another plane wasn't going to come back? Maybe he was just patrolling around until everybody was gone and then he landed. It's
sort of like that would make more sense if it hadn't already run out before he even did the last thing.
Yeah, but then he wouldn't have the badass silent gliding plane, which is so goddamn cool. When it just blows again, it up and it just goes and flies by.
I agree from a visual storytelling point of view. Like those things make sense why they are in the movie and why Nolan put them there. But from a character point of view or storytelling point of view, I have questions as to why did it happen that way when he was already out of gas before he even shot the last plane and was right there. You know, like, I mean, I'm not saying even necessarily like it has to have a voiceover of like, the reason why I didn't crash right there is because all the people, you know, I mean, it's like, it's not that.
I didn't crash there because I didn't want to hurt anyone.
For you. You know, it's just weird. It's like, yay, that the guy's engine is off and he saved us, but not like one soldier asked, like, well, why is he still flying? Or, you know, he's going to crash and he's going to land over there where the Germans are coming through. I mean, it was just like, oh, yeah, there's a whole, it's like, we'll still be loading up people for nighttime. And it's like, so there was obviously going to be like tons of people still on the beach. Anyway, it's because if you remember, we were already shown that like past the beach at a certain point where they were already getting at a certain direction is where that ship was, where the water came up. But when they show him like landing, like the beach is still at the same level it was the entire time. So like the water hadn't come up to that. Anyway, stuff like this makes it to where like I can't sleep because my brain is like, well, what about this? What about this?
That's why you could never make a movie, because you'd be going crazy.
No, I would make a movie with so many inane details that not only would it take me a year and a half to shoot it all, no one would ever notice the thought that I had put into it.
So you'd be Kubrick. Wow,
I didn't say that.
Just call yourself the greatest.
I did not say that.
Way to just say you would be the best. You're like, no, I would actually put care into my movie.
No, it's not that. It's I would have to work everything out to where it made sense for me to make a movie.
And everybody around you would be going mad, just saying, just complete it, just finish it.
Yes, there is no doubt in my mind that anything I came out with, people would claim that I was a perfectionist.
God.
Because that's how I am at work as well.
35% on Rotten Tomatoes. The critical consensus is this is worse than Cats.
No, I mean, the thing is, there would not be any critical rating because no one would ever see it.
You would become what you love most. Obscure trash.
So basically where I am right now.
Ouch. So the Tenet trailer came out.
Uh-huh.
What do you think about that?
It is a completely different avenue for Christopher Nolan. It's going to be a movie about time.
I think it's going to be about people who can actively control time, which is a little different, right?
It basically
It's all of his other movies are kind of time working against people. This one almost seems like it's going to be people working with time, using it to their advantage, rather than, we only have 16 hours to implant this memory into some guy's head, or like, okay, we got to get off the planet before 45 years goes by on Earth and I never get to see my daughter again, or like the Germans are going to kill us in 6 hours.
It seems to me that he's either going to go completely science fiction on this one or completely supernatural.
Which is
because it is either that the main character in Tenet actually gets killed and then he's outside the bounds of reality and they can do whatever they want.
So source code.
Or it's going to be where there's some future tech that once the guy is like pulled, almost like the Matrix, he's like pulled out of common everyday thing, he's erased from existence, and now he's able to work outside the boundary of the law.
So Men in Black.
Yes. So to me, that's why I say it's either going to be like the supernaturalistic, like it's outside of the Matrix, outside of, it's like the guy even says in the trailer, afterlife, welcome to the afterlife.
With Nolan, I would bet more money on it being the sci-fi one than the supernatural one.
I agree. That's what I would go for as well.
Afterlife is just like the name of the...
Sure, just like Treadstone
FBI or
Blackbriar. Right. I know I'm throwing Robert Ludlum things in. Anyway.
Mine was an Archer reference.
Oh, mine came first. Anyway. So I could see that happening. I mean, it's obviously the name can be read forwards and backwards the same.
You think the movie's going to be a palindrome?
It would not surprise me if that's what he's going for.
So he dies at the start and he dies at the end?
It could be something like that. It could be one of those things to where the way he has made the film and sectioned out, where you could actually like backwards mask the movie and play it forwards and backwards at the same time.
Jesus. So Memento. You can watch that one straight forward and the way it actually is backwards.
Well, it's not backwards. It's
backwards with splices of the black and white.
It's edited weird. It would not surprise me if this one actually parts of it actually run. Anyway,
what if it is just backwards? It starts at the end.
That wouldn't make any sense. You wouldn't be able to.
It starts
with
the climax. Imagine that.
I mean, it could be something like that, but I would imagine that there has to be like an introduction, and then after the introduction,
do that?
Lots of movies start at the end. I mean,
well, no, Irreversible was literally backwards.
Right.
It starts with the big moment, and then where the movie would end if it was like traditional, and then it goes backwards till the beginning.
I mean, Enter the Void did that as well. It's a Gaspar Noé thing.
I didn't see that one. Climax starts in the middle of the movie. Remember, Climax's opening credits are like 45 minutes into the movie, and the end credits are at the start.
Climax is so fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I know.
To me, those are the real filmmakers. Anyway. I wish people like that were just, Panos Cosmatos, Gaspar Noé, like all those guys were just as popular with the common person as Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, but that would never happen, ever.
Or Hitchcock.
Ever.
Anyway.
It would never happen.
I wish David Cronenberg was talked about in the same breath as Steven Spielberg. Anyway.
It would never happen. Because there's too many normies in the world. That's the thing. Sorry if you're a normie out there. There needs to be more middle ground people like me.
I mean, the thing is,
just like everybody.
People go to the cinema.
Trash.
People go to the cinema for different reasons. Some people go
to watch a movie.
People go to forget their problems and for escapism, to go someplace else for 2 hours, to be able to feel good afterwards.
Yes.
I personally don't care about that. I mean, sometimes that's what I need, but I don't need that all the time. It's almost like sometimes I need a greasy Baconator. But if I ate that every day, I would be 500 pounds and I wouldn't be able to move. So, and that's just perpetuating the American thing about everyone's fat lards over here. So it's like, while that's good sometimes, for the most times, I like enriching my life. I like asking myself questions. I like think about things. I like questioning what it is that I see. I like some cynicism, but I definitely like asking questions and learning more, and knowing as many truthful things as there are to know.
Right.
So
And
more
I
of
just
that,
like
please.
movies. I float with the wind. Sometimes I'm like, I want to see the new Marvel movie. Sometimes I'm like, let's watch some weird shit. I don't know.
Yeah, but Marvel's not cinema.
Damn. Ow. Right in my soul. My Gordon soul. What do you want him to do next? After Tenet?
After Tenet, I think it depends on what it is. I would like Nolan to go back to another small movie.
Yeah.
That's not going across the cosmos. That's not changing time. That's not saving 300,000 men. I'd like for him to go back to like Following or Prestige, where it's like one man versus one man, or an idea versus an idea, or just a smaller crime story that deals with small character moments. This is the same thing I hope Marvel does, where everything isn't save the planet and it's a giant monster from space that's destroying everything and breaking apart buildings. I'm sick of that. I want more character stuff. It's kind of, and I know this probably isn't the place to talk about it, like the Spider-Man movies. When it's just him in high school dealing with high school problems, that's fun, and I like watching that, and I think it works really well. As soon as they start fucking CGI jumping around doing shit, I completely clock out. I don't care.
Classic bitch.
That's why for 2019, my favorite movie was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Is it just people existing?
It was a story about two men and their lives.
Yeah, you wouldn't like any movies about two women.
Well, The Handmaiden.
Never heard of it.
Mulholland Drive.
Never heard of it.
Craig Leave.
That's how it feels.
So, would you like to tell people that they should like and subscribe?
Well, no.
And
First,
comment?
all in all, Dunkirk. What do you think?
It's a really good movie. It's definitely worth checking out. I don't think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. You know, I don't.
Because that's sliced cheese.
I just take a bite out of cheese.
What?
When it comes to modern war films, it is one of the good ones.
Yay. Well, if you like the show, if you're
Fuck
still
you.
around, go fuck yourself. Before you do that, be sure to leave a like and subscribe on YouTube.
Ring that bell.
Ew. Why would you say that?
Ring that bell.
Then you can know when new episodes are coming. Or leave us a comment. Tell us what we should do in the future. Tell us what you think about Dunkirk. Tell us what you think about us and our ramblings of madmen. In addition, you could follow the show on Twitter at digital_podcast.
Poopy_pop.
Wow. You can also follow me on Twitter at Alex's Views, and Garrett on Twitter at Garrett Donardo, as well as both of us on Letterboxd, with links in the description below to that, if you want to pay attention and stalk our movie watchings as we transition into a new decade. This is the first podcast episode of the new decade, Garrett.
I don't give a shit.
Happy New Year. Who gives a shit?
The numbers of the years change. Nothing else has.
Every day is a new decade. 10 years different than you were last
Every day is a new day.
Every day is a new dawn. I'm gonna punch you in the face and call you.
I thought you were gonna rhyme.
I did. You didn't let me finish though. I said and call you John. Whatever. Whatever.
What I said was, I'm not gonna hurt you.
I'm
just gonna bash your fucking head in.
Bash him right fucking. Whatever. All right. Well, we'll see y'all next week when we talk about Inside Llewyn Davis.
Bye.
And Star Wars, probably.
And Marriage.
Probably Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Wait, that's not the next one we had. What's the next one?
Marriage. Oh, was that not the next one? I thought that's what we were doing.
You can't choose every fucking week.
What are we doing next week then?
I don't know.